Good afternoon, financial professionals. My name is John Florence. I'm Senior Vice President of Marketing here at E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you once again to The Brew, where we build relationships every week. Thanks. On today's Brew, we welcome North American Regional Vice President Andrew Herrera. Andrew will be sharing the benefits and solutions that life insurance can provide to clients while they are still living, and more importantly, how it can be part of a comprehensive plan for your clients. Before we get started with Andrew, feel free to use the chat box to share any thoughts and ask any questions you might have. Also, all attendees are in a drawing for a CE voucher and a Starbucks gift card. We'll be announcing the winner at the end of today's program. So, Andrew, good to see you again. I think the last time we connected was back in July, but welcome back to The Brew. You are absolutely one of our favorite guests to have on the program, and also just one of the best people that we work with in our industry. So very happy to see you on the program, and looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today. What have you got?
Thanks, John. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with E4 and all of your advisors. So thanks for having me back on The Brew. Always a pleasure. You see my screen okay? Thumbs up if that works for you, John?
Thumbs up.
Awesome. As you said, just want to share briefly here over the next couple of minutes, life insurance for the living. What does that mean? Exactly, as John alluded to, I think that life insurance is more than just a death benefit, more than what we traditionally think about it. And I wanted to highlight some of that for the advisors with E4 today. When I think about, what life insurance is at its most basic fundamental point, I always think back to my own life and having to explain it to my kids, early on when they were asked, what does daddy do? What is your job? And it's kind of complicated to explain to a toddler, what a life insurance wholesaler does. But I would always start with what life insurance is. And very early on in my kid's life, I explained how life insurance works. If mommy and daddy were to pass away, there's some income protection there. There's money that would help pay for things like the house that we live in and replace our income to help pay for them to go to college someday and so on and so forth. I quickly learned as my kids have gotten older, now they just started third and first grade respectively. They certainly understand the concept of what life insurance is in its most basic form. I'm reminded of that because they often ask how much life insurance mom and dad have, almost like there's some sinister plan, that they're working on behind the scenes. So I've graduated to the point where I not only tell them, life insurance for its death benefit purposes, but now they can comprehend how life insurance can do much more than that as well. And more importantly, it's something that mom and dad can enjoy while we're still living. And that's what I want to highlight today. I won't spend a lot of time talking about North American's products. Hopefully a lot of you are familiar with North American's product portfolio already, but we offer everything from term to GUL to GIUL to accumulation IUL to single premium products. Each one of these products meets clients at a different need, a different point in their life, and can offer different solutions. One thing that all of our products have, our entire product portfolio, is living benefits, which I like to call CCT, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But first, I want to talk about, what can life insurance be used for? Again, I think, one of the taglines I think I put in the invitation for the brew was, life insurance is not your dad's, it's not your father's life insurance, right? It's not what we think of as our, what mom and dad owned, that previous generation, death benefit focused life insurance. Now we realize life insurance can do so much more, especially when we think of the cash value potential that life insurance has, that life insurance is the only asset that we have that will grow tax deferred and would give us tax-free income. On top of that, of course, we have a tax-free death benefit wrapper as well. What you're seeing here is actually North American's solutions, client solutions platform. These are all sales concepts, sales ideas, sales platforms that we promote to financial service professionals. And at the top, depending on what type of financial service professional we're working with, are the sales concepts probably most suitable to that particular person. I'm going to make an assumption that most people tuning into the brew are financial advisors. And so this is probably the category that most be suitable to you. And concepts like annuity maximization, business sales ideas, right? We think about key person insurance, buy-sell funding, executive bonus. I mean, these are all solutions that aren't just death benefit oriented. Life insurance can do so much more. When we think of college funding, right? Most people think of a 529. That's a great tool. It's a great asset to have. But not too many people think about using life insurance for college funding as well. For retirement planning, right? We often think of AUM, qualified assets for retirement planning, and we often overlook using permanent cash value life insurance for things like supplemental retirement planning as well. Why would someone need that? Why would someone use that? Well, there's many different reasons. There's sequence of return risks that you can experience in the market and AUM type assets that you don't have in permanent cash value life insurance. There's legislative and tax risk, right? That those other assets could be exposed to, right? If tax rates go up in 10, 20, 30 years when someone retires, how have they planned for that? Well, we know that permanent cash value life insurance, again, that money will grow tax deferred, and that client can utilize that cash value tax free. And so if tax rates were to go up when they're in retirement, at least they have an asset that will be protected from that. In fact, just several weeks ago, I know that one of my colleagues here in town, Jeff Murtha with Mass Mutual, was talking about that on the brew, was talking about, utilizing the life insurance as another asset class, especially when it comes to retirement. Things like estate planning, there's so many other concepts that are available out there that aren't just your traditional, this is death benefit oriented, that's all life insurance is a death benefit. It's not something that can be utilized for life. And I think that those of us that are in this space recognize the value of life insurance and how it can be used for so much more during someone's life, and not just, to pay out a death benefit. I mentioned the critical, chronic, and terminal illness riders that are offered in North American's entire product portfolio. I like to call it CCT to keep it simple. Critical illness, probably the most common things that I think about for a triggering event are heart attack, cancer, and stroke. Kidney failure, organ transplant are the other two, but certainly, like I said, kidney, heart attack, cancer, heart attack, and stroke are the most common that we see for critical illness claims. Chronic illness is when a client can't do 2 out of 6 activities of daily living, and it does not have to be permanent with North American. So long as it's over 90 days, they could tap into that chronic illness rider. And the terminal illness rider, you can accelerate a portion of your death benefit if there's a life expectancy of 2 years or less. Now, when we think about, again, going back to death benefit, North American year to date at our company, we've placed over $21 billion in death benefit coverage this year. But we've accelerated in one of these CCT buckets, we've accelerated over $50 million already. And I'm sure that number will go up as the year continues. I think back to earlier this summer, right? A 43-year-old who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer was, utilized his life insurance policy because his wife decided she wasn't going to work anymore. She was going to take care of him. They're going to try and fight this. They don't know how long, he has, but they were able to accelerate his life insurance policy. And I'll never forget how thankful the family was, because they needed those finances. They needed money to help, battle the cancer. Again, she's not going to be working as much, and they needed that financial windfall. And they were fortunate enough to have living benefits with North American. They could tap into that life insurance policy. The example I always use is with my own life, right? I'm 41 years old. If I were to buy a 20-year term, the likelihood of that term resulting in a death benefit over the next 20 years, knock on wood, statistically would be about 1%. But the likelihood over the next 20 years of me having a cancer, heart attack, and stroke, that goes up dramatically. And wouldn't it be nice to have a life insurance policy that I can access, that I can tap into if one of those events happen, right? So I'm not talking about death, but if I get injured, if I get sick along the way, is there something that I can utilize and tap into? And certainly there is with North American's life insurance product portfolio. I'd be remiss, since we are in September, if I didn't mention Life Insurance Awareness Month. This is a great opportunity, if you're an advisor, to reach out to your client and do either, policy review or just begin the conversation, engage the client, saying that, if they don't have life insurance, there absolutely is a life insurance need. Like I mentioned, we've got different products to meet different clients. No matter where they're at on their journey, their life journey, we've got a product to meet their need. Again, I would challenge you and encourage you to reach out to your clients, especially this month with Life Insurance Awareness Month. Access some of the tools, complementary tools that we have at your disposal to help aid you and have those conversations with your client. So in wrapping up here, I'd like to share a story I was reminded of recently. And so this goes back, I think, to the 3rd century BC. Hans Stacy was a Chinese, I think, philosophical book. And in there's a fable, there's a story. And it is basically the irresistible force paradox, I think is what it's called, or at least that's how I learned about it in a philosophy class, decades ago, back when I was in college. And the irresistible force paradox is summarized in the story. And it's basically a story of a gentleman at a market, and he's selling a shield and he's also selling a sword. And a customer comes by and he tries to get this customer to buy, one or the other. And he says, hey, how would you like this shield that is impenetrable to anything out there? Nothing can absolutely pierce this shield. It is so solid. It's amazing. Or if you don't want to buy that, you can also buy this sword. And this is the sharpest sword. It'll penetrate any shield out there. The metal that it's made out of is just remarkable. And so he gives the client the choice, which one do you want to buy? And the client asks, the customer asks, well, what happens if this, sword that can pierce anything were to strike this impenetrable shield? Like what would happen? And of course, that's how we have the irresistible force paradox, which left the person at the marketplace who was selling it, left him speechless, right? He didn't know how to answer that question. And I think, again, if I were to place myself in that shoes as a customer at the marketplace that day, I probably logically would have asked the same question, right? Like, this impenetrable shield, but this sword that can pierce anything, well, how's that possible? But I might follow up and say, how much would it cost for both, right? And I think that's the story, that we ought to tell. If I can summarize that into what I'm talking about today, is that life insurance isn't just protection. Life insurance isn't just a death benefit. Life insurance isn't just something that when you leave this earth, it's something that you leave behind to a spouse, to kids, to a charity, to a business, to whoever. It can do so much more. It's not just a shield. It can also be a sword, right? It's something that it's an asset class I can have. It's tax-deferred growth. It's tax-free income. It's college funding. It's business planning. It's living benefits. It's critical, chronic, and terminal illness riders. That's what life insurance is. And so I leave you with that. So think about life insurance differently today. Think about life insurance as more than just a shield, but how it can also be a sword for a client. My hope is that you take away from this brew for your clients, right? Think about what life insurance can do for them, especially during Life Insurance Awareness Month. It can be so much more than a death benefit for them. And as you look at the different solutions that life insurance can do, I hope that you implement them in your practice, not just to aid your clients and put them in a better position, but also to generate revenue for your practice. So, John, appreciate the opportunity again to be with you on the brew today, and thank you for your time.
Amazing, Andrew, as usual. Thank you very much for the share. A couple of questions that kind of come to my mind from the presentation that you threw up there. And you were kind of pointing out a couple of different areas where, life insurance can sort of be used, or ideas, I guess, kind of taking it beyond the death benefit. And one of the areas that jumped out to me was annuity maximization. And I would, by maybe extension, also go with IRA maximization. What do you mean by that? How does an advisor use a strategy like that and use life insurance as part of that strategy?
Sure. Well, when I think about annuities, I look to North American, right? The other side of the house, we've got a very robust annuity department. We're in the annuity space. But talking to my colleagues and peers on the annuity side, one of the, I think, probably most interesting facts that I wasn't aware of is how few people actually trigger an income rider on an annuity. I mean, it is, at least with North American, it was less than 10% as of earlier this year. And so that is a lot of money that clients, again, thought they needed for a certain reason. Certainly annuities are beneficial. They grow tax deferred. But we know that you can't access that money tax free, right? Like you can with life insurance. And for clients who have that annuity money out there and they're like, you know what, we don't need that for what we thought, we were going to need it for. That's money. There's a lot of money that's penalty free also that you can tap into, and that can be moved over to life insurance. And if that client's thinking, hey, we want to leave this money to our kids, to grandkids, to whatever, well, you can get much more leverage in a life insurance product, assuming you can get through underwriting, of course, than you can in an annuity. And so it makes sense a lot of times to take an asset like an annuity or an IRA and say, hey, what is your intended purpose with these funds? And if it makes sense, and again, if you can qualify for life insurance, then you can get much more leverage over here on this side of the house. And so that's why we see a lot of clients who, again, realize that they're not going to use that annuity for what they thought they were going to use it when they originally purchased it, or maybe they don't need the entire thing, so they can just move a portion of it. And again, the concept is called annuity maximization, but it works the same way with an IRA. Is moving those funds over, putting them in a permanent cash value life insurance policy, maximizing that leverage that the client can have. And I would remind you that leverage, when I'm talking about a death benefit, is not just something that's going to be passed on if you were to die tax-free to your beneficiaries, but if you get sick, all those living benefits that I mentioned, you're using that higher death benefit amount from which you're going to accelerate. So that's another way to get leverage.
That's very interesting. Related question. You mentioned that you have to qualify for life insurance. Does baldness, is that a disqualifier?
It is not. We actually have given many bald people super preferred non-tobacco. So it is not a disqualifier at all. And remember, John, today is Bald is Beautiful Day. So keep that in mind.
On a more serious note, as I understand it, North American is one of, if not the only carrier that has this CCT type of rider, especially in the way that you guys implement it with no additional cost or charge to it. Why aren't other carriers doing this? I mean, it seems like a great idea.
Yeah, so we are not the only carrier that has living benefits on term or entire product portfolio. There are some carriers out there, but like you mentioned, a lot of carriers will charge extra for it, or you can tell there's a big premium difference. We are the lowest cost carrier, especially in the term market, to have living benefits included in our product. In fact, just this week, USA Today was naming its top term carriers, and Salmons was included in that for that very reason, for being the most cost-effective term policy for clients with living benefits. I don't know why more carriers don't do it. Certainly, I imagine that they will be looking into it. But yeah, I mean, in my mind, it's a no-brainer because it's not just death insurance, right? It's life insurance, something that we can tap into while we're living. And I know a lot of clients, that's the advantage they see with North American is, hey, I don't want to think about dying, right? I might not die tomorrow, but if I can still tap into this policy, if something happens along the way, that's an added bonus.
Absolutely. Well, let's just check out with the audience and see if there are any further questions out there. And I remind you that you can use the meeting chat box to post any questions that you might have for Andrew. And in the meantime, I will also take a moment to just remind you that next week on The Brew, we will be welcoming Colonel Dan Animal Javorsek, who was the head of DARPA's artificial intelligence integration into air combat operations, as he is going to give us an overview on his upcoming keynote presentation at E4's Savvy Advisor Solutions that'll be held in Fargo on September 28th. And I think it'll be an interesting presentation as to why advisors should see the emerging artificial intelligence technologies as an opportunity as opposed to a threat to your practice or your business. But let me look out here and see. It doesn't appear that there are any other questions from the audience. So Andrew, I want to thank you once again for your time. Really great to see you as always. And we look forward to having you back again on The Brew sometime in the near future here. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thanks, John.
And we'll see you all next week on The Brew.